So we're live.
Awesome.
And I'm here with Sarah Ortiz
Hello.
on my podcast, Simply Complicated. And I'm going to introduce you real quick,
Okay.
but I met you because I got involved, I think it was last year, it might have been 2 years ago, doing work for the Center for Prevention of Child Abuse,
Yep.
the CPCA.
Yeah.
And I've been filming stuff here and there, and we made some videos for them. But I had seen you about a month ago, 2 months ago.
Month ago. Yeah. June.
And it doesn't happen often. Like, you know, you're my 12th episode.
Oh, cool.
And I usually am like looking for people now that just are interesting.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I need to talk to them.
Yeah.
You're the first person where I saw in public, complete stranger, saw you talk, and then came up to you and I was like, hey, you need to be on my podcast. So welcome, Sarah.
Thank you so much. I'm excited.
So how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
What do you do exactly now? Before we get into some of your stories,
Yeah.
What is it? Because I know scheduling-wise, we were going back and forth.
Yeah.
What is
so
it that you do?
I am the supervisor for the CASA program. So CASA is court-appointed special advocates. So basically, we are assigned by Dutchess County Family Court judges on abuse and neglect cases for children through family court. So, you know, they come in on, you know, a neglect case. Usually it's a case that's like really complicated.
Mm-hmm.
And the judge is like, all right, I need, you know, another set of eyes, you know, another party. CASA was created by a judge, actually, I think out in California. And he kind of wanted somebody to be him a little bit and like step off the bench. Like he wanted to get people to do what he wanted to do, which was step off the bench and just go and like see these kids. And so it's really like a volunteer-based program. So I supervise volunteers. So I assign volunteers onto cases and I say, you know, here's the information, here's the contacts, like, you know, go see the child. And then they write me a report. So we see the child at least once a month, depending on the seriousness of the case. It'd be more than that. And then we write a report to the judge and submit it. And, you know, we find that the kids, even the parents sometimes, open us up to us more because we're not Child Protective Services. We're not a lawyer. You know, we are just like,
there's no badge.
Yeah, there's no
briefcase.
Yeah, there's no badge. There's no briefcase. There's no iPad. You know, like I go into visits in, you know, my sweatpants and my sneakers, and I'm like ready to get on the floor and like play. You know, because that's when they tell me stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Not when I'm like, you know, I've been on visits where I see like, you know, CPS just like on their iPads, you know, and I'm like, no 5-year-old is going to, you know, give you information about what they're going through when you're just like sitting there with your, you know, badge and your button up, you know, just, you know, because that's not to them, you know, it's like you have to get on their level, you know, and just like I have one kid I just get on and I play Pokemon cards. I don't know how to play Pokemon. I just Google it and I'm like, all right, I don't know. This one is 3, so he must be powerful. Like, I don't know how to play Pokemon, but I just get on and I play with them and they talk to me while we're playing Pokemon. And they don't even like realize it, you know, but they wouldn't talk, you know, they wouldn't if I showed up like, how's your day? You know, like, what's that do? Really? So I love my job. It's like, being an advocate.
When you say a complicated situation, what's an example of that?
So we have one case.
Because I know it's pretty serious, and you
Yeah. It's really just like family dynamics that get complicated. So it's like usually it's multiple children. So it's like, you know, one child is having a really hard time with, you know, school and, you know, all this, and the other child is like really like introverted and, you know, the mom we have a lot of like substance abuse cases, a lot of mental health, and a lot of poverty. So it's really like when you get into these, you know, cases and you just talk to these people, it's really parents who just need help. You know, they just need services. But, you know, a lawyer and, you know, Child Protective Services, they don't see that all the time because parents don't open up to them. You know, they just see like, oh, this is a drug addict and, you know, we need to take their kids. You know, and really
most people are afraid of CPS, right?
Yeah,
Because they think they're there to take the kid away.
Exactly. And they do. You know, it's really sad. And then to take a child away, it's just added trauma.
Right.
You know, they already have gone through so much trauma in terms of like, you know, seeing their parent use and their parents' behavior when they're using, and then, or mental health or whatever it may be, you know, and then let's yank them from their environment and put them in a foster home. And then, you have kids who are, in their teens who just stay at group homes because, nobody wants a teenager, which is, it's sad. I have this one case where he's been at the children's home forever. And, he's like probably never leaving, it's like he's just going to age out in the children's home. And, it's so sad to see, but then, you go in like, all right, I need to be a resource for you. I need to be somebody that you can come to, and you can call me whenever just to talk, because that's what I am. And I tell them when they're old enough, I say, I'm here, I'm your voice. So what do you want me to tell the judge? If they're in their teenage years, I ask them that. I'm like, what do you want me to say for you?
That has to be so empowering.
Yeah. And they're like, okay. And I put quotes in my reports. So-and-so stated, quote. So the judge can like literally see this is what the child wants. Because in all of this, in, the reports and the, depositions and the lawyers and this, like the child gets lost, because CPS wants one thing and the parent wants another, and then the lawyers and like.
Right. You almost forget that it's not just a case.
Where's
it's
the
a child? Yeah.
What does this child want? She wants to go home. She doesn't want to go home, That's big too sometimes. So it just depends on the case. And my volunteers are so awesome. I have volunteers that are like, I have one volunteer, she's like a PhD and like, she's a professor. So I get her reports. They're like real long. And I'm like, your reports are just so amazing. I just don't have to block out time to read them. But she's just like so cool. And like my volunteers are just so dedicated.
So now how did you get into this? And why?
I found a job on Indeed, actually. At the
That's
time,
still around?
Yes, yes. At the time, I was working at the Dutchess County Legislature, and I liked the job, but it wasn't like what I wanted to do with my life. I knew I wanted to advocate for children. I've always known that, and so. And I was, I'm going to school I'm getting my bachelor's in child and family studies and stuff. So I knew that that's where I wanted to go. And, being a secretary at the legislature, like it was great, but not my career, So I was looking, for a job in the advocacy field, and I found it on Indeed. And I applied like through Indeed with my, resume and everything. And then like a month went by and they didn't like, call me or anything. So I emailed them directly and was like, I sent my resume on XYZ date
So
and
smart.
like, and then my boss called me for an interview, and it's funny because my first interview, I wasn't even out of the parking lot and she called me to set up a second interview. So it was just like, so awesome. And like my boss is so amazing.
That was smart of you. That's a good advice for anybody currently seeking a job.
You have to follow up.
I get emails, and I'm telling you, the first one, because I see it comes in, hey, I'm so-and-so looking for a job.
Yeah.
I just gloss over it. But if that same person comes back a second time, a third time, I'm like, all right, I got to.
Yeah. And, she had told me that she didn't even get my first one, my Indeed application. Like it got lost somewhere. So
people will let you know, especially employers, if you're being annoying.
Yeah.
Like they will.
I got
they'll be
your
like,
email
I got
already.
It. Right, exactly. I got it. We're still looking.
We
We're
saw
not
your
interested.
name. Like a no is a no.
You're not going to get ghosted by an employer.
No, so I followed up and I got it. Yeah. And I love it. I really do. And I'm part-time, but I also make my own schedule. So that's nice. I'm like, yeah, I'm coming in late today. So it's nice.
That's the best right there.
Yeah, my boss isn't like a micromanaging. Like, she told me in the beginning, like, you make your own schedule. Just let me know what it is. Like, just make XYZ hours a week and we're good. And I'm like, awesome. Because I hate being micromanaged. It's like the worst.
And so now I asked you to come here today because, and I don't know if I said this off podcast or when we first started, you absolutely, I saw you speak at the CPCA, and you actually, like, the whole place, I mean, you could feel it.
Yeah.
And it's, you weren't a motivational speaker, like you were speaking about something, very serious. How did you get invited to that? How did you find the CPCA?
So they had helped me with my case back in 2015 because I was a child at the time of my abuse. So the detective was like through there because they have like a group of detectives that work through their agency. And so he was assigned to the case because I was a child at the time. And so I worked with them back in 2015. And then, time went by, 4 years or whatever. And they were having their annual banquet. And so my mom actually messaged them, like she emailed Kim, and she's like my personal assistant, my personal agent, my
Who's
manager.
that, your mom?
My mom. She's like my manager. And she messaged them because she knew that, I always told her, like, one day, like when I'm ready, like I want to speak about this, just like, I did about my son and my teen pregnancy, because, this is happening all the time, so. But I knew I had to
Well, that's why I wanted you to be
that.
here, because
yeah.
the more and more I get involved in this organization, I just, not that I don't think I'll ever get numb to it, but I just like every time Kim says 1 in 10 or and you're just like, the numbers are a lot bigger than you realize. So I know it's heavy for people on a Tuesday morning, but parents out there, I don't know how many kids are listening to this, but this one is really important because, especially for you listening to your story, one of the things you said in terms of coming forward is you were afraid that your mom wasn't going to believe you.
Yeah.
Like, wow, and I can see why you want to be there as like a support system for these kids, because you see some of these kids that feel like they can't speak up for themselves. Yeah. So you want to be that for them. Yeah. Because I'm sure you felt like you didn't have a voice.
Yeah. For years, and because that's what you're told.
As much as you can, just to bring, I don't know what you want to say about this, but fine. Just as much as you can.
Yeah. So from the time that I was 12 to 16, my stepfather was sexually abusing me. And, I call him my stepfather, but like he was my dad, like my biological father left when I was 2. Mm-hmm. And, I met my stepfather when I was 3,
you call him dad.
Yeah, like I called him dad, like, forever. He adopted me when I was 8, like he was my dad. To be like so betrayed by, the first man I've ever loved in my life, it was like, and even like for him to like, groom me the way he did, that's why I believe my mom wouldn't believe me, because that's what I was told. And he was, my adult figure. So why wouldn't I believe you, that my mom won't believe me. Nobody will believe me, And so like growing up in that, I didn't have a voice. I didn't, have really anything. I didn't know myself because it consumed me. I mean, like for years.
God, I mean, 12 years old.
Yeah,
13 years
you're
old.
like little. You're little. I look at myself, like I look at pictures of myself, and I'm like, I was so little. Like, I mean, I'm short now, so like imagine me at like 12. Like I was like a little girl, and I was like, I had just developed, like I was small, I didn't know anything. I hadn't even kissed a boy yet at that point in my life. So like to lose so much at like such a young age, it's like it consumed me, the rest of your life really. So like even when it ended when I was 16, because my mom kicked him out, not because she found out about that. He was very like physically abusive too, to all of us. So like, to grow up in, not only the sexual abuse, but the domestic violence part of my childhood, is really hard. It was really hard for me too. So he left, and that's why it ended. And then I got pregnant at 17, with my, my ex in high school. And at that point I was like, okay, like now I have this baby, and now I'm going to forget about this. And like, everything's going to be like, butterflies and rainbows, and this horrible past of mine is going to go away, because I'm just going to like love this baby so much, And it was actually like the opposite of what happened to me. Like after I had my son, like I thought about it even more, and like it affected me even more, where I was like, oh my gosh, like I need to make sure this never happens to my kids, and like, or anybody that I know, because the more research that I do, it's like they never have one victim. It's never about sex. It's about power. So gender doesn't matter, so, I'm 18, 19, and I'm still living with my parents at the time, and my son, he's, 1, 2 years old, and he's getting like really close to my stepfather, like he loves him. And that's the thing about my stepfather. He was so like easy to love, like he cooked for you, and, he bought you things, and, he drove you everywhere, and he was nice to your friends, like he was so easy to love. But I saw my son like getting close to him, and I was like, internally, I was like freaking out, like, oh my gosh, I need to protect my son. And not only that, but like my own self, was really affecting me. I was angry, I was so depressed for like years, and I I knew why,
I mean,
but at
it's
the
already
same time, I
hard
didn't know why.
enough. Like, I'm just saying, my fiance's daughter is 14, turning 15 in a couple of months. I could already see, like, you know, life is already so difficult and challenging, and she's trying to figure things out, and her body's changing.
Right,
and all that. Like, there's already 1,000 different thoughts going on.
Right.
And then, so for a teenage girl, and then add,
to go through that.
something like that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it was hard. And like, you know, for me, like looking back at that time, I really don't know how I just didn't like blurt it out and just like say something. And that is like the fear. Like, I feel like I had like a fear duct tape over my mouth, you know, this invisible like duct tape of fear of not being believed, you know. And
when did you realize it was wrong?
I feel like I was like maybe like 15. I remember like being little, like 12, 13, and like I didn't even really know what was happening to me. Like I like distinctly remember like thinking like, what is this? What do you even call this? You know, and like, you know, I was like, is this sex? Is this, you know, like I really didn't have a word for it. So like, even if I wanted to tell somebody, like I didn't even know what to call it. You know, like something's happening to me and I don't know what it is. You know, so like that's why like what the CPCA does in terms of like going into schools, like I didn't have that as a kid. Like nobody came to my school with a puppet about inappropriate touch, because maybe if they did, I would have told somebody, you know. But when I was growing up, that wasn't even a thing. You don't talk about that, you know, at that time. So when I see them like go into schools, I'm like, that is so awesome, because I'm sure that they've had kids come up to them.
Oh no, they say they do.
Yeah,
they say they have kids come forward, even if
sure.
it's just to say like, hey, I felt uncomfortable, and then they talk about it, and they're like, oh, well, that wasn't, because there was one example where, again, it was a stepdad thing, and the stepdad was just, he was walking around, I'm just making sure I can share this, and I'm not, like, revealing anything, but the stepdad was just walking around in boxers, and there was, I don't know how old the girl was, but she came forward after one of these classes and said, you know, I feel uncomfortable with my stepdad, and they looked into it. Yeah. So they found out, and maybe he wasn't wearing boxers, he was just, after the shower, he would walk around in a towel.
Okay.
The guy was doing nothing wrong. Nothing was going on, but at
right.
least that child came forward, they talked about it, and they were like, well, that's, you know, maybe, you know, you don't want to do that, but,
yeah,
you know,
but
it's not abuse.
To know the child for the child itself to know that I have a voice.
That I can come forward and talk to somebody.
Believe me, and people care.
Yeah.
You know, because like at that age, I'm like, nobody cares. You know, nobody's going to care. You know, nobody's, you know, going to believe me. And I grew up in that. I lived in that, you know. So like at one point I was like, okay, you know, like, it's all right. I'm going to die with this, and that's fine. Like, I'm taking this to my grave, and I'll be fine. Like, I'll be okay. Yeah. And I was like so sure of that for so long. Like, I had convinced myself, like, one day this is going to go away. You know, like, I'll be fine. You know, and like, the more I got older, it never did. You know, it never did. The DA on my case, Christine Whalen, she gave me an analogy once. Yeah, she introduced me. She was like, it's kind of like a beach ball. Like, you know, a beach ball that you push underneath, like, the pool water. Like, it always comes up. Eventually, you can push it down all you want, but it's always going to, like, pop up and just, like, splash you in the face and get you, you know? So, like, I had, like, really certain, like, triggers at that time. Like, anything would just, like, literally just send me back. Like, a scent, you know, like, a shirt he'd wear. Like anything would just, like, oh, my gosh, like, a quick, like, 2-second flashback. And then I'd, like, you know, get into, like, my anxiety and, like, you know, I had...
So do you study this part of it? Like, do you know what that is psychologically?
No.
Okay.
I just know that they were, like, triggers for me, like, in my own
I just feel
head.
like it's... I think about, like, the human mind, the human body. Like, if it won't let you ignore...
No,
something.
It won't.
So it was almost like creating symptoms.
Yeah, and like it's there, but like certain things had to like set it off for me to be like, oh my gosh, you know, to bring me back to that place. And then that's when my anxiety would kick in. You know, like I talked about a little bit in my speech. I had this like nervous tick. I still kind of do it sometimes, where I'd like pick my lips. But I remember like one time specifically, I think that we were like me, him, and my mom. We were like all watching TV, and we'd watch like documentaries like Dateline and stuff like that. And there was one like about like a child molester, and he's like, you know, sitting right next to me. And so I remember like sitting there, like picking my lips, like picking my skin. And I picked it like so bad. I literally had like a gash in my lip from like watching this and like sitting there with him, you know, and like he says things like, well, people like that, they should just, you know, hang themselves in their prison cell, you know, and I'm like,
really?
Yeah, you know, yeah. He was like a different type of like sociopath. Crazy. Yeah.
So the reason why I asked how you knew it was wrong, because you know, I don't know how many kids will listen to this, but I remember this was years ago. I got hired, I think it was 7 years ago. I went to Atlanta and I had a film. It was the beginning of a documentary that never went anywhere, but I stayed for a week at this camp. It was a sleepaway camp for girls who have been sexually abused.
Okay.
And there was 20 girls with like 7 counselors in all different areas, whether it was like, there was like an art therapy counselor, you know, all different things.
Okay,
So
yeah.
for a week, you know, the kids go there and they talk about stuff. But they're also, I think, mandated by court to be there. I forget the whole story.
Yeah.
But the reason why I bring that up is because I remember filming one girl, and she was 18 at the time. There was like 6-year-olds to, I think the oldest girl was 18.
Wow.
And she said she started being abused by her dad. It was her biological dad when she was 6, and didn't tell anybody until she was 16.
Wow.
And she's now, so even all these girls who have had their own stories in one way or another, all those girls were, not that they laughed at her, but they were like, what? Like, that's your dad. Like, how did you not? And she goes, I remember her saying that. I'll never forget this if I don't remember anything else. She said, she's just like, listen, I know now,
Yeah.
like that wasn't love. But she's like, you all need to understand that for 10 years, I had my dad tell me that's what real love was.
Right.
And
you don't understand like how moldable a child's mind is, you know, like 6, like that's little.
yeah,
You
they
know,
believe everything.
You could tell them the sky is purple, and they'll be like, "Yeah, that's true. It is totally purple." You know, like they'll believe anything.
My
And
stepson's 8. He's just stopped believing in Elf.
yeah,
But he still wants, because he's like, can you guys still do Elf this year? Because he
Yeah,
still wants to believe
exactly.
it. So
Like there's such like a special like innocence of a child's mind, you know, and that's what's really heartbreaking is that, you know, these perpetrators know that, you know, they see it from a mile away, you know, and I feel like, and to me, it's like, I still have questions that I'll never get answers to, you know, but like, I think about when I met my stepfather at 3, you know, it's like, did you always plan this?
right.
You know, like, was this always in your cards? You know, like, oh, okay, I'm gonna, you know, fall in love with her mom, and then, you know, she doesn't have a dad around, so, you know, like, was this always something that you were planning to do? You know, so that's like
Like how a robber looks for an old lady.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
to
Like, and it's
first,
heartbreaking to like think like, oh my gosh, you know, when I was 3, you know, were you really like, okay, when she's 12, I'm gonna do this, or, you know, like, you know, and it's like people like that, you know, you're just so like sick. That's really the only way. Like, you're just like sick, you know, to think that that's like good, you know, to be okay with, you know, doing that, you know, it's like, you know, it's
just
like
0, just in case.
yeah, like,
There's no way.
and he would justify it to me, like, you know, I do this because, you know, I love you, or I do this because, you know, I was abused as a kid. He told me one time. I'm like, what?
But, so explain. I don't know if you can, but explain to me those conversations, like that conversation that you're having. Are you saying like, "Hey, this is weird, dude"?
No,
like,
I mean, I think that, you know, my like energy, you know, my spirit, like knew that it was wrong, you know, but like my mind wouldn't let that get there, you know? So like, I feel like he knew that I was like uncomfortable, like, you know, like even like around him, I'd be like really like,
yeah,
you know, like he'd just make my skin crawl. So like, you know, there'd be some times where I was like, you know, really like quiet and like really like, you know, like, and he called it like the thing, you know? So like, I don't know, I'd like yell at my mom or like have an attitude or something, and he'd come talk to me like, are you upset because of the thing?
wow.
You know? And I'm like, what? And I'm like, no. You know, I'd always tell him like, no, you
And
know.
your mom had no idea, right?
No. And, you know, I had to like, sometimes I had to work through that, you know, because it's like, to me, looking back, it's like, how could you not know? You know, because there were certain times that he almost acted like a jealous boyfriend towards me. You know, like I remember one time I went to Sweet 16, and I was like 14 at the time because I had like older friends, and I was talking to a boy or standing next to a boy or something. Like, I'm 14. So yeah, that's the age that you're like, oh, he's cute, you know? And so I guess he came to pick me up and I was standing next to a boy or something. And he just like blew up when we got home. Like, it was this huge, huge fight, you know? Like, when I look back at that, I'm like, that's weird.
Wow.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, hello, you know, it's like, how did nobody see this? Or, you know, like,
yeah, it wasn't like a
really
dad.
strange.
That was
it wasn't
mad.
a dad that
Right.
was like upset, you know, it was like this, like the like over controlling, you know, like boyfriend. Like, that's really how I think about it, you know, like this weird, like he had this weird control, like over my phone, like he'd call numbers that I'd text and stuff. Like, it was weird. He'd print out like on Verizon, when you could go on to like, you know, the website, he'd like print out all my texts. Yeah, like, it was weird. It was weird. So now I look back and I'm like, you know, like, how is this not a red flag to anybody, you know? But like, even
the
in
only one that
school-
really could have came forward and said something was you. And
Yeah.
but you're in this situation as a child where you just don't know. You're not sure.
Yeah, and
Am I by
he was
myself? Are
such a
people going to
big
believe me?
part of my life too. You know, that's the other thing. It's like he, in the smallest sense of the way, like, he was my dad, you know, like he'd show up to all my, you know, cheerleading things, you know, he'd show up to every, you know, concert, every, you know, open house, every parent teacher conference. Like, he looked like the best dad in the world. Literally, like, my friends would say to me, like, your dad is so awesome.
Oh, that must have crushed you, right?
Yeah. Like, I'd have like sleepovers and like with like me and my three best friends, they'd always come to our house because we had like our house was pretty big and we had like a whole finished basement with like a TV, a fireplace. Like, it was like perfect down there. So we'd go and like just have like girls' night, and he'd like, I mean, a whole spread of just like the best foods, you know, junk food and popcorn and movies. And like, he'd bring it down like on a nice trays and like drinks. And like, it was just like a dream, like something you'd see in a movie, you know, and like, oh, you know, I wish my dad would do that for me. You know, you have the best dad ever. And what do I say? I'm like, yeah, I know, right? Isn't he great? You know, and like, so now my friends, you know, I mean, we're not that close anymore, but when I did my speech and I put it on my Facebook and my Instagram, you know, they messaged me and they were like, I'm so sorry.
That's the
You
thought that I
know,
keep on
yeah.
having right now.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just keep on thinking, like, I'm so sorry because you must felt like a prisoner to a certain
and
extent.
I was in a way, you know, and that's what I talked about, you know, in my speech, where like my home was never like my safe haven. It was my hell. Literally, like we had like this really long driveway, so like I'd get off the bus and like just trek up the driveway, like, oh my god, like what's it gonna be
Like,
today?
can this driveway be longer?
Yeah, exactly. You know, so it's, to look back, I'm like heartbroken for myself, but sometimes I'm like, I wish I could like go and hug her. You know, like when I look at pictures of me like at you know, that age, at 12, 13, 14, you know, I'm like, I wish I could hug her and like, you know, just tell her like it's gonna be all right. Like, it'll hurt a little bit, but like a lot.
Well, like I was telling you
It'll
about
be all right.
the public speakers that I was telling you about earlier, the one girl who lost her parents in that car accident, she's been doing this talk, I think it's nine years.
Wow.
And the only way I think that she gets therapy out of that, because she's never going to bring her parents back,
Right.
you know?
Right.
I think the only thing that gives her purpose in life is to continually share her story to
Right.
get the next person to... It wasn't drunk
Yeah.
drive. I kept on saying, I think it was texting.
Okay.
So she does all these studies. She's done like little documentaries and stuff.
Okay.
Even when I did, so I think that's important for you to like
Mm-hmm.
to do that. Even my company, the film company started.
Mm-hmm.
The first project was a film called Someday Melissa, and this mother hired me like 3 months after her daughter died of bulimia, and we did this like 2-year project together.
Wow.
But I really think that doing that film for the mother was more
Totally.
important, and it gave her more progress than
Totally.
therapy by doing the documentary.
Yeah. And like I said, you know,
So it
to you
never goes
before,
away,
Yeah. It's
you know.
like the more I talk about it, the less power I give, the less negative power I give to him, you know. And like I said earlier, like, he's already taken so much, you know, you're not having my future too, you know. And that's why I always say my oldest son like saved my life, because I'm like, I don't know if I never had Julian, I don't know if I would have said anything, you know, like, I don't know. Because to me, it's like, you know, when I look at my kids, you know, I have 2 boys, Julian and Levi, and I look at them and I'm like, I need to protect you. you know, like, I love you so much. And like, I need to protect you. So like, when I looked at Julian, he was so little at the time, you know, he's 6 now. He was like, I think 2, 3 at the time. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, I need to protect you.
Mm-hmm.
And how do I protect you? Like, oh, I need to tell, because what if this happens to you, you know, or like, you know, my stepfather used to tell me, well, you know, it's not my fault. You know, you're just so pretty.
Oh my.
You know, and I'm like,
this guy's away, right?
Yeah. Yeah. He's in prison for 20 years.
Good.
You know, so then I'd be like 13 and I'm like, well, you know, like, well, one day, like, I want to have a daughter, and, you know, what if she's pretty too? You know? So like, you know, I thought back to, you know, I'm 20, you know, when I finally told I was 20, I'm like, wow, like, I need to do this. You know, I was terrified that day. Terrified.
No, it's great that you're breaking the cycle, because even
Yeah.
that camp that I brought up, the reason why this kept on happening is because their mother was in, like, prostitution rings are real. Like that is common. And it's not like, I know there's kidnappings and things like that, but there's also like family prostitution rings. This is something that I learned.
Wow.
Where the grandmother is in on it, because she trained the mother, and the mother just thinks this is the way
Like
the world
life,
works.
yeah.
So she puts her daughter into like this system.
Crazy.
And they send their own kids to Disney World to meet some guy for 2 days. Like, this stuff exists.
Wow.
Yeah, and then they get sent back, and there's an exchange done online. It's like it opened my eyes to so much, because you always hear things like, if you have a friend of a friend and she says, oh, well, this, and it's always seemed like it was farther away than what this problem really was.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things that I want to touch on is that what you're talking about, like this perfect, what appears to be this perfect guy, and you just have no idea.
Yeah.
How can we, because, you know, we can do classes like CPCA does, there's certain things.
Yeah.
A lot of this stuff is happening in their own home with somebody closest to them.
Yeah.
What do you look for if the kid is not going to come forward themselves? What can other adults look for? Because I feel like I might be friends with, like, this is what scares me. I might be friends with somebody.
I know, it's scary, because it's, you know, people think, well, not my house, not my family, you know, not my kids, you know, and it's like things like this, they don't, you know,
the person that says that,
it doesn't discriminate, you know, it doesn't care how, you know, how much money you have, or, you know, like, stuff like that doesn't matter. You know, it's like, we were, like I said, this perfect middle-class family with this big house and, you know, 3 cars in the driveway, and everything was great, you know. But I feel like, for me, I thought I had warning signs, you know, red flags that were ignored in school. You know, that was like my place to kind of act out in a way. Like, one example, when I was in the 7th grade, I spread a rumor that I made out with some 9th grader. I don't know, whatever. And
I've done that before.
Yeah, you know, and then I went into like detail about like making out with this guy.
You were selling the lie.
Yeah,
right.
like, you know, I was like, yeah, I was wearing lip gloss. Like, you know, like, you know, I thought it was real cool. And I had a group of friends, like this specific group of friends. It's so funny. We called ourselves the Sweet and Sassy Sparkles. Isn't that great? I look back and I'm like, what the hell?
Trying to be like the Spice Girls or something.
Yeah, what? And so I spread, you know, this rumor that I made out so and so, you know, and one of my friends, you know, she snitched on me, and she told her mom, and, you know, they called the school about it. I went to a private Christian school, and so that was like, whoa, it was like really taboo, you know, and they called me into the office and said, they didn't tell me who it was, but they said, you know, one of your friends, you know, they told their mom about what you said and all this. You're suspended. And that was it. Yep. I got suspended for a whole day for that, you know.
In school?
No,
out of school?
Out of school.
That's not so bad.
Yeah, I know.
Well, no, maybe not for you.
So they, and I'm like, you know, of course they called my father. Because my mother at the time, you know, she worked a lot. You know, my mom, you know, was this vice president at MasterCard. You know, she was like always working. So they called my father because he, you know, worked at IBM down the road. So you can come pick her up. What a great idea. Oh my God. You know, so, you know, he picked me up, and, you know, I got my ass beat. Yeah, I got in a lot of trouble for that.
That's right. You said he was abusive too.
Yeah, very, very, very abusive. So I got in a lot of trouble. But, you know, I look back and I'm like, why didn't anybody, like, really question me? Like, where'd you get this from? You know, I was 13, newly 13, because that was the beginning of the school year. So I had just turned 13 because I turned 13 in August. So it's like, why didn't anybody say, like, where do you get this from? Like, what's going on? But nobody asked me why. I distinctly remember nobody saying, like, why'd you do that? Why'd you say that? Just like, we don't allow this in our school. You're out. It's like, and I look back now, like, as an adult, as a mom, as, somebody who works with kids, and I dig a little deeper, So, and I never did any of my schoolwork. I acted out in school all the time, because that was my one place of not having him around to, like, look over my shoulder and watch every move I made, So, like, I just did whatever I wanted, and nobody. I feel like kids act out for a reason. Nobody just acts out just because, So, like, my reason was because of what was happening at home. Nobody asked me why. They just thought, oh, she's a bad kid. Oh, she never does her work. Oh, she forges her mom's signature on everything. But nobody asked me why. Why don't you want to go home and tell your parents you got a C on your paper? What would happen? Are you scared at home? I would ask those questions, but nobody asked me. You're out. You're a bad kid. So I guess it just depends on the kid. Those were what I feel like were my warning
but this
signs.
is what I feel for kids.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like I teach in schools too, and there's sometimes where kids are being brats and their parent can't come in to defend them, even though they do. It's like, come on, like your kid is acting up. But then there's also like what you're talking about where and there's a difference, and I don't know
there's
if
a big difference, yeah.
But sometimes kids are acting out because they're kids.
Right.
Other kids are acting out to like get attention, like they're screaming for help, and I think sometimes you can see it, and it's body language, and I don't know the scientific way of addressing that, or seeing it.
I don't know. I feel like those are my warning signs because like I look back and I'm like I not that I hated school, I didn't love it either, but I'm pretty smart. Like there's no reason why I didn't do my homework or like failed all these tests. It's like somebody, one person could have dug a little deeper. And that's my thing too. Like it just takes just one person to ask the right questions, and I could have like been pulled out of that situation sooner.
So let's talk about somebody who does ask good questions, and that's the CPCA. Because
Yes.
you said you saw them, or I don't know if you seek their help, or how did you get in touch with them?
No, so I told my mom about my abuse.
You went to your mom first?
Yes. Well, I wrote her a note and I left it on the door and I left the house. That's how I told her. And she, questioned my stepfather. And I remember she told me, he said, why don't you ask your daughter what she did?
What?
Yeah. My mom's like, what? She's a child, like that's how his brain worked, and I had left
like
the house.
He was going to blame you,
Yeah.
and your mom was going to be like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's distorted thinking right there.
Right. And that's what I had been groomed that was going to happen, right? So, but I left the house and I turned my phone off so like nobody could call me, And then my mom finally called me. I was like, "What's going on? Like, where are you? Like, I got your note. Like, what are you talking about?" And I was like, "Just read the note. Like, just read the note. Like, because I literally like
it's all
couldn't
in the
physically
note,
say it. Like, I just my body wouldn't let it come out of my mouth, So, and she called me because I had like this whole plan to like stay at a hotel, with my son. Like that was my plan because I was like, she's not gonna believe me. Like I'm gonna have to like find somewhere to live. Like in my head, I'm like thinking these things. And she called me when I got to the hotel, and she was like, "Can you come home? Like he's gone." And I was shocked. I was like, "Oh my gosh, like she believes me."
I'm surprised he left so easily.
Yeah. I think she probably threatened to kill him or something. I don't know. That's what I think. I don't know. But yeah, he left. And it's crazy because I was driving up the street and I passed him on the road to my house. And I remember like looking in my rearview mirror, and he had stopped, like almost like waiting for me to stop and talk to him. I'm like, "Are you serious right now?" Like, what? But I remember like looking back
because he's thinking he's in a relationship, and
it was creepy, like And so I get home, and I just tell my mom like everything, And at the time, she hadn't talked to me about like telling the cops or anything yet. It was more like I told her, I was like, I need to get out of this house, I remember like looking at her and I was like, we need to leave.
Because it was still going on.
No, not at that time,
Okay.
but we lived in the same house still.
Right.
Cause I was 20. So it had stopped for like four years at that point.
Okay.
But we lived in the house. So like I was molested in every room of the house, every single room, so it's like,
do you have any
that
sisters
house?
or?
No, I have 2 older brothers.
Okay.
Yeah. And they hated him, like, cause he was just a horrible person really at home.
Because I'm just wondering, you said like there's not just one victim.
Yeah,
so if
yeah.
he stopped with you, where was he?
No, I mean,
His behavior didn't change.
He asked my brothers, or I'm sorry, my mom asked my brothers if like anything had happened to them, and they said no. I think I was just an easy target.
Right.
I was. My brothers are 5 and 10 years older than me, so by the time he was in the picture, they were older and old enough to hate him. And I was, so young and, innocent and little, and I wanted a dad, so of course, why not me? So my mom, we moved out in 3 weeks. We moved to this, like, she didn't sell the house in 3 weeks, but
Go mom.
Yeah, we moved out. We got like this cute little like townhouse. It was like perfect. I loved it. And when we finally moved in, she was like, do you want me to, report it? And at first I was like, no way, because a part of me, loved him, he was my dad, so I'm like, I don't want him to go to jail, like I love him, he's my dad, that's like this like hurt 12-year-old girl in me, like,
right.
Well, like, what do you go to jail, and I'm like, and then I like snap back into reality, like, Sarah, like, I have to like shut, this like hurt 12-year-old girl in me sometimes, like, he's a horrible person, like, you need to like, so I told her yes, and she went to the sheriff's office first. And she was like, I have a crime to report. And then they sent over the detective from the Advocacy Center. And he called me and then set up a meeting at the Advocacy Center. Mm-hmm. So I never went to the sheriff's office. I was always at the Advocacy Center every time I would meet him there. But kind of like I said in my speech, I'm an energy person, like, so when I walked in there, like I felt really safe, just by the energy of the place, by the people I interacted with, like, I mean, down to the receptionist, like they were kind, they were just had smiles on their faces. They were just like happy, bright people, it's like that, I don't know if the receptionist knows how important that is, to like walk in and I just, yes, how may I help you? Like this like nasty, like, hi, how are you? What are you here for? Whatever. That's so important to somebody like me because I'm already going into this like, all right, maybe he's going to believe me, but there's a high possibility that he won't, right? Because that's what I've been told my whole life. So, my brain is like, all right, like in a way I'm kind of like protecting myself. Like, okay, you have to remember, like, he might not believe you. It's very possible here, so to go into this conversation with this man that I've never met before, and know, okay, I have to, divulge things that have happened to me that I've never told anybody, because I couldn't just go in like, hey, I was molested, do something about it. Like he needed proof, he needed details,
right.
And I've never told anybody, before that point, I've never told anybody details of, my abuse. Like that would be,
Yeah, and how do you prove it? You're not going to like film it. Well,
it's funny because not funny, but I had this one, he was like, I remember him asking me, like, I need a specific time, like, can you remember like one time, And so I remember like this one time, it was like in the dining room, but we were painting the dining room like green. They want to paint the dining room green. And yeah.
All green?
Yeah, the whole dining room was green. I'm like, oh, whatever. Okay, whatever. But I remember, like, at that time, it was, like, summer, and they were painting the dining room green. I remember, like, them redoing the floors and painting the dining room green. And I don't know what year it was. It was, June of, 2008 or something. Mm-hmm. And I don't know why that stuck out in my head. And I gave him that story. And so he went to my mom, and he was like, do you have any receipts of you guys remodeling the dining room at this time? This is 2015. And she was like, I don't know if I have receipts. And so, my mom, she's like an investigator, so she like goes through all, these files. And my stepfather was like this really like like anal, like OCD type A person. So he saved every piece of paper that came with everything. And he saved a receipt from Lumber Liquidators from June of 2008. And like that kind of just like, it's like, wow, that was like the proof almost.
So interesting.
Yeah. That he kind of like, in a way, you know, dug his own grave with his own like saving of everything. So like there were like a bunch of receipts of that time of them remodeling the house and me like remembering dates and years and, you know, time of the year and like wall colors and, you know, type of wood. Like there were certain things that I, you know, just my brain, like it stuck to my brain and it, you know, kind of proved my case. He also wrote a letter to my mom and like I think left it at the house or something, about like how sorry he was and like, you know, I didn't mean to hurt anybody and, you know, all this stuff. So it was like a lot of it kind of he, you know,
get out of here.
He
dude.
told, yeah, he told himself,
you know,
yeah, no,
it's not gonna work here.
You know, he never in any like written thing, he never said like, you know, why are you doing this? This never happened. You know, it was always like, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
You know, why do you apologize for something you didn't do? You know? So we were preparing for trial, like 2016 at this point. And in October of 2016, he pled guilty to it and got sentenced to 20 years in prison and 20 years post-release supervision. So, and I remember like at the sentencing, because I did a victim impact statement, and at the sentencing, he got all like big, like 40 years. Like he said this to the judge, like 40 years, that's more than murderers get. Like his lawyer was like stop talking, you know. And the judge just like was like, are you kidding me? Like,
yeah, because he doesn't get the magnitude of,
like
the action.
Yeah, and that's what
silly.
the judge said. The judge was like, you get 40 years. She gets her whole life.
Right.
With this.
Yeah, you forget this person has to continue on.
Yeah, like live life, you know.
And your children.
Yeah.
It's like that too. Like this affects a lot of people.
Yeah, like, you know. So yeah, so he's away that was 2016, so he's away for a long time.
So how does it so we covered the CPCA. They definitely were I mean, so the CAC is the Child Advocacy Center. That's
it's like part of the CPCA. They're like one building, but like, yeah.
But they handle like the lawyer side,
Yep.
the you know, testimonies, things like that.
Yep.
It's very much a safe place for children to share their story.
Yeah.
One time, hopefully, because like you're talking about, you didn't want to relive that trauma. Like how many times? That's why I felt bad. Part of you telling the story today, and I was like, I don't even want to ask her.
No,
it's like,
don't feel bad.
How many times can you tell the story?
No, I'm not like at that time. I was hurt by like talking about it all the time, you know, because like I said, like 12-year-old me was like screaming, like shut up, you know, like we don't talk about this. But you know, as an adult, it not that it doesn't hurt, like it's something that I'll always have and like live with, but it's more like I need to talk about this. You know, this is something that is happening everywhere, you know, to millions of kids. You know, so if I could be like one person to speak to a parent or, you know, another survivor and say like, life gets better, you know. And I had the DA, Christine, she called me one day that she had a client that had gone through similar to what I did. And, you know, she wanted somebody to talk to who had been through it. So she calls me and she's like, would you mind like just coming here and talking to her? And I did, you know, I was like, yeah, I'll be right there. You know, I ran over and, you know, I talked to her and, you know, she had told Christine after like talking to somebody who's been there, like made me feel so much better. And I remember like, you know, sitting there and talking to her and I'm like, listen, like I promise life gets better. You know, like I know right now, this is all like you have tunnel vision, like this is my life forever, right? This pain and this hurt and, you know, this burden, like this is forever. You know, that's what you think at the time. And so I told her, I'm like, listen, like, you know, take me as an example. Like I'm a mom, you know, like I have 2 beautiful kids, you know, like I'm in a great relationship. Like, you know, you're lovable and you're beautiful and, you know, like somebody will love you even though you've been through that, you know. And I just felt like I needed to tell her that because you feel so like unlovable, you know, you feel like dirty, you know, when you go through something like that, you know.
You probably feel like you're wearing it to some extent, right?
Yeah.
Like everybody, even strangers, they just know.
Yeah, I felt, honestly, like I felt like damaged goods.
Yeah.
I really did. And I remember like thinking at like 13, 14, like, you know, nobody goes into the store and says, I want the broken doll. you know, and I really remember like thinking about that about myself. Like, I'm broken now. Like, you know, who wants the broken doll? Nobody, you know? And so at the time when I was speaking to her, I was like, listen, like, I promise life gets better. You know, she was actually at my speech that day, and she came up to me and I was talking to her, and I was like, oh my gosh. I literally said, I told her, I was like, you look like sunshine. She just looked so like bright compared to when I last saw her. You know, she looked like burdened and like, you know, sad. And, you know, I get it because I've been there too. And I told her, I was like, you look like sunshine. That's the only way I know how to describe you. Like, she just looks so like free, you know? And like, that's real. Feeling free, being free, and then looking free. Like, that's so real. That, you know, you wear that, like you said, as much as I wore the hurt and the pain of the abuse, like I wear my freedom even better. You know, like, this isn't something that bothers me. You know, I mean, I have days where I'm like a little bit like I'm affected by it.
Of course.
You know, like I don't have days where I'm like, oh, you know, life is great. You know, this never happened. I'm so happy right now, you know, but I have, you know, and a lot of it is like in me, like parenting my kids, you know, like I'm so like my one son, like, because he's 6, he'll be 7 in October. So I question him now on everything. You know, I'm like, how was your day? What'd you do today? Who'd you talk to? What'd they do? What'd they say? Where'd you get that? You know, like he comes home and he's like, Mom, I got a Jolly Rancher. I'm like, who gave it to you? You know, like, why? You know? So like, it affects me in that way where I'm like really into my kids' lives, you know, and I create that atmosphere in my house, you know, in my relationship with my kids. I'm like, you can tell me anything, you know, and there's no judgment here. You know, there's nothing but like love, and I'll always believe you, you know, like, and my son knows that. He talks to me about like the littlest things, you know, like my one friend watches South Park, Mom. Did you know that? Is that a good show? And I'm like, no, and you can't watch it. You know what I mean? But like, you know, he just like, he knows like it's safe here. Like my mom, like she loves me and I can tell her anything, you know? So that was like
both
my
your
biggest
children
thing.
are boys?
Yeah.
So you don't have to deal with a girl.
Not yet. I definitely want one. I'm like, you know, my dream was to have like 2 boys and 2 girls, so I can have like an even number. But we'll see.
That's the same thing with my fiance. She wants 2 more, and she already has 2, and I'm like,
yeah, I know. People look at me like I'm crazy. They're like,
she always does this thing
kids?
where at night my fiance she goes yeah, I want to have a child with you, and then she falls asleep. She'll wake up in the morning and go, I don't want a freaking kid. You know what I think happens? I think at night after sleeping and everything's peaceful, you're like, yeah, I could do one more. And then when the morning hits, and it's like, Mom,
and everybody's up.
You're like, I don't want any more.
I know. I have days where I'm like, yeah, let's totally have another one. You know, I need a girl, whatever. And then like my kids are like going crazy. I look at him, I'm like, never mind. Like, you know, like, I don't know, you know. But no, I love those kids. They're crazy, but I love them. I always grew up with like this notion, like I have to have, not that I have to have kids, but like I always felt like, you know, okay, like having kids is like my like calling. Like I always felt like that. Even as I remember being like 6 and like feeling that way, like I'm like meant to be a mom. And at 6, like what did I know about like being a parent? But like I always felt like, you know, like this, I have like this like internal like mom instinct. Like I remember being little and remembering like, yeah, like I'm called to be a mom, you know? So like when I have my kids, I'm like, oh, this is my calling. Like these little humans I create, like, you know, like they're so beautiful. Then they turn, you know, 6 and think they know everything.
That's why I'm talking about a girl. Wait till you have a 14-year-old daughter.
I know. I'm like, everyone's like, do you really want a girl? Because she's probably going to be like you.
Every answer is, I know. Wow. It's that last syllable.
Yeah. Which is very vital because it won't go through if you don't have that at the end, okay? They won't understand. I know. My 6-year-old, he's so funny. Like the things he comes home with. What did he say? I was just talking to him on FaceTime. Have a tissue. I'm sorry. I was just talking to him on FaceTime, and he's in Florida with my mom. My mom just moved to... Yeah, perfect. That's fine. My mom just moved to Florida, and she's like, they went to like an aquarium. So he went to like get, touch the eels and everything. Mm-hmm. And he's like, yeah, Mom, I touched the eels. And I'm like, oh yeah? And he goes, yeah, but one of them didn't want me to touch him. So he's like, not today, guy. I'm like, is that what he said to you? He's like, yeah. I'm like, all right, dude, you talked to an eel. That's awesome, you know. But they're fun, you know. I love my boys. They're fun.
Children are such a blessing, and we need to protect them. But at the same time, they need to get hurt. Not in the way that we're talking about today, but like kids need to be kids, and they need to run around and scrape their knee and bleed, cry to mommy, like, and then you kiss it and make it go away.
Yeah,
all that stuff.
Like you know, don't stick them in front of just the TV, and you know.
Right. But in these bigger things, what we're talking about, you know. And I don't know if it's just, listen, I have to imagine this has been going on forever. I think what I'm asking people to do is just like, I don't know. That's why I want to know those indicators, because I just want people to be a little bit more aware. Yeah,
I think it's important just to like have the conversation.
Yeah.
You know, like even at the young age.
Even if it's in your school, like the CPCA, like it's like, do they have, is it called the Child Protection?
The Child Abuse Prevention Center, but I don't know what their
program.
Their program is
Personal
called.
Protection class or something?
It's like it's something. I don't know, but I know
they talk about safe touch.
Yeah, I know for abuse, like for adults, they do sexual abuse prevention training. I know they do that, like for parents, like to look for the certain red flags. I know in little kids, the red flags are big, like bedwetting, like regressing,
right?
Stuff like that. But when it's a teenager, you know, I just feel like it's a lot of acting out that you have to like really pay attention. Like, what kind of acting out is it? You know? So I know that's big, but I wasn't, you know, little. But I think my acting out was really big. But like I said, just at home, like just to have the conversation, you know, like with my 6-year-old, you know, like this is your private parts. You know, nobody touches this. Nobody looks at it, you know, like, so he knows like where his private parts are, you know, to the point where like he needs to put his clothes on with the door closed. Like, you know, I don't want anybody to see me naked, you know, it's good. You know, nobody's supposed to see this. Nobody's supposed to, you know, touch this, you know? So you have that conversation starting when they're young, you know, so they know, like you said, but what the Child Abuse Prevention Center does, safe touch, you know, because a hug, you know, that's not abuse, but anything, you know, further than that, and kids should know the difference, because unfortunately, this is, as a parent, something that you need to know and look out for, and know that there are people out there who want to hurt your kids. As much as you don't want to believe that, or as much as painful as that is, as heartbreaking as that is, you know, there are people out there who just want to prey on your kids. And it's never the guy hiding in the bushes, you know?
No, that's something that everybody
never the
needs
guy
to understand.
hiding in the bushes.
It's always one of the closest people to them.
Yeah.
Somebody that they trust and love.
99% of the time. 95, 99, something like that. Some crazy statistic.
And I couldn't believe it. You know, it just made me think about something, an old relationship. And I remember we were maybe early 20s, and she told me about something that happened when she was a child. And it was like her cousin or her uncle. And I was like, that guy? And I wanted to, like, you know, I was going to see him at a barbecue in like a couple of days. And I'm like, let me handle this. And she was like, don't say anything. Yeah. So even in that situation, that's somebody who was 20 and still didn't want to come forward. Yeah. So for you, back to you, Sarah, I'm wondering if the note that you had to write to your mom, was that you were talking to somebody, you were just telling a story, like it gets better. Yeah. Was the note was coming forward the hardest part, and then it got easier, or is it up and down? Yeah, I think the note was a really big stepping stone for me, because like my mom was the most important person for me to tell. You know, at the time, I didn't even think like, oh, I might have to, you know, tell a DA, I might have to tell a detective, I might have to tell a grand jury. Like, you know, in my head, I wasn't working through that. It was like, I need to tell my mom because like she's my person, you know? So like the note was really big for me because it was just finally telling her. Yeah. You know, because I'd look at her, you know, and I'd be like, you don't even know, like, you know, and like they'd go on like cruises and vacations together, and I'd be like, ugh, you know, like I'd just be like so grossed out for her, you know? And so telling her was really, really big for me. And like I said, at the time I wasn't like, I might have to tell a judge one day. I might have to talk to lawyers. Like I didn't even think that, you know? So you just seem in such a really good place right now. Yeah. Like you can hear it in your voice, the way you carry yourself. Thank you. Thank you. It's probably being reflected in your life. And that's what, like, I want you to encourage people to come forward in some way. I mean, I don't know if you're talking about things publicly.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be the same way for everybody.
No. And, your story doesn't have to be, on a podcast or at a speech.
Right.
Your healing is going to look different than mine. This is part of my healing. The more I talk about it and tell people and bring awareness to it, that's part of my healing, because that's part of my calling, is to talk about the hard things, but that might not be your story. Might be telling a significant other, that might be okay for you. You might find healing in that, so I'm not asking you to like come sit on a podcast and tell everybody, this would happen to me. Just talk to somebody, because
but like
there's
you said,
freedom
that
in that
beach ball that you're trying to push underwater.
It'll never stop popping up. Never. And it'll come in like the worst ways. To me, I was 18, 19. I was a new mom and I was angry. I was terrified. I was scared. And that, it manifested itself in my parenting at the time. Like I didn't enjoy little things with my son because I was so consumed in something else. And I tried to like push it away with like other things, like I would like go out with my friends or like, social media or whatever it might be. Like I just tried to like engulf myself in anything to make me forget about that. Mm-hmm. And I never forgot. I woke up thinking about it. I went to sleep thinking about it. I would play with my son and I'd be thinking about it, because there's pain in secrecy. There's so much pain in secrecy, and you shouldn't have to carry that. It's not fair and it's not okay. And nobody, you're not just going to wake up and be like, I'm good now. I'm happy now. This doesn't hurt me anymore, because even me in my healing and being like healed and whole, it still kind of hurts. When a picture comes up from, a memory of that time, and I look at myself and, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I remember that day. I remember like being molested before my graduation, like there's little things. It's like, oh, so like, I can't say now that it doesn't hurt. I can't promise anybody that it's never not going to hurt, because you'll always remember as something that you just carry forever, but you don't have to carry it in shame. You can carry it in freedom. Like it's possible, it doesn't have to hurt always. It's just a part of my story. It was just as horrible as it is, as painful as it was for me to go through, to think about sometimes, to know that I went through something like that. It's just a part of my story, and it's made me who I am now. It's made me, the woman I am, the mother I am. I just see the world in just a different way, where I ask more questions that weren't asked to me, because if I can prevent this from happening to one person, I'll do it. I'll do it every day if I can prevent it from one person. If I can help one person to bring you, to the start of healing, because I can't walk you through your healing. I can't, but just to know that there's hope in healing, and that like it's possible. You don't have to be in this like dark place forever. And it's hard because you convince yourself of that, like this is where I'm at. This is what life is, and I just need to accept it. But you shouldn't have to, and you don't have to. And it, like I said, your healing isn't sitting on a podcast or talking to a room full of people, and that's okay. Your healing might, like I said, talking to a friend, telling a family member, anybody, a pastor, a coach, somebody you trust. Just go to somebody that you trust. That's the big part of it.
I think you can end on that.
Totally.
That was great.
Thank you.
That last little bit was magnificent.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think there's nothing, after you just said that, there's nothing more to say. Is there anything else that we should say? Anything that we haven't talked about today? Anything that we're leaving out?
Yeah, not that I can think of. I mean, I always tell people, like, I'm here for you, like, that's what I, told the one girl I worked with. Like, I was like, I'm always here, like, to talk to, or what, if you need, like, listen, you don't have anybody in your life to trust, tell me, like, that's what I, so people can,
like you said, call a friend,
yeah, call a friend,
a hotline,
like, yeah, anybody. There's so many,
call the CPCA,
yeah, there's
somebody.
So many resources out there for people just to, like, and it's just like, like you could just like breathe a little bit after.
I am not okay with men, and I'm sure it happens on all sides, but I'm just not okay with men. Like I said, these might be my friends, these might be people I know. It really makes me mad because I don't do this, and I don't understand what makes anybody think that any of this is okay. Even just laying your hands on somebody you're in a relationship with. I don't get that mindset.
Right.
And I'm not okay with that. Right. And I want to be at least one of the men who's publicly saying that. And it seems like silly that you have to like make an announcement that says, hey,
this isn't right. Not cool. Yeah, totally.
But come on.
Yeah.
Like enough. You're being a coward. You're a
more
punk.
People need to like stand up and talk about it.
We need more of you men. We need more good men.
Yeah, it's
like
true. Because it's not talked about. People just don't want to talk about it because it hurts too much, and they don't want to. They don't even think about it happening in their house, So like, the more people that stand up and talk about it, the more men, the more women, maybe we can spark some change.
That's it. Hopefully. Go talk to somebody. Sarah Ortiz. Thank you so much.
Thank you.